In the small, seemingly quiet town of Silver Oak Springs, things were rarely out of the ordinary. The town had an almost nostalgic rhythm to it, neighbors greeting each other with a friendly wave, the distant hum of life flowing through tree-lined streets, and children playing outside. But as with every town, the sense of normalcy could be shattered in an instant, and it was on a simple afternoon when a determined 12-year-old girl set up her lemonade stand that everything changed. Maddie Brighton, with her vibrant spirit and unshakable determination, had no idea that her small act of kindness would soon become the center of a terrifying battle between good and evil. In a town where life was usually predictable, the Dark Phantoms, one of the most feared motorcycle gangs in the region, had chosen to target her, an innocent child just trying to raise money for sick children. This wasn't just a simple dispute over a business venture, this was a battle for control, for the right to live without fear. Maddie's lemonade stand was meant to be a place of hope. She wasn't just selling lemonade, she was carrying out her mother's final wish to help others. The proceeds would go to St. Mary's Hospital, aiding children who, like her mother, had fought battles with illness. But what started as a heartfelt mission soon turned into a confrontation with a ruthless gang that preyed on the vulnerable. And yet, in the face of this imminent danger, Maddie stood her ground, refusing to back down, relying on the courage her father had instilled in her before he left for deployment as a Navy SEAL. As the story unfolded, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Maddie wasn't just fighting to keep her lemonade stand open, she was fighting to protect the values that had been passed down to her by her family: love, kindness, and courage in the face of adversity. But even more than that, this was a story about how one person, no matter how young, could make a difference when the world seemed determined to break them. The shadow of the Dark Phantoms. The Dark Phantoms weren't just any motorcycle gang, they were a symbol of fear. Their very name was enough to send shivers down the spine of Silver Oak Springs residents. Led by the intimidating Hawkthorne, the gang had terrorized the town for years, controlling the streets with an iron fist. They thrived on intimidation and power, making everyone fear them with the unspoken rule: if you want to live peacefully here, you need to play by our rules. And those rules were simple: don't cross them, don't challenge their authority, and most certainly don't expect kindness from them. When Maddie set up her stand that fateful day, she had no idea that she was about to face the full force of their wrath. Her lemonade stand wasn't just a fundraising effort, it became a symbol of defiance in a town too afraid to stand up to the gang. And yet, here was this little girl, standing tall, not backing down from the bullying, not letting fear overtake her resolve. The bikers had no idea who they were dealing with. But this battle would teach them something they never expected: that true strength doesn't lie in intimidation, it lies in the courage to protect what's right. A hero's absence, a hero's return. Maddie's father, Commander Sire Brighton, a Navy SEAL who had been deployed overseas for months, had taught her that strength is not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to protect. His voice echoed in her mind, urging her not to back down. But with him so far away, Maddie was left to carry the weight of this mission alone. She wasn't just defending her stand, she was defending her family's honor, her community, and her mother's legacy. But the bikers didn't know the one thing they should have feared most: Commander Sire Brighton was not far from home. What they didn't realize as they circled Maddie's stand, threatening her and mocking her, was that this battle was about to take a sudden and unexpected turn. It would take more than a father's words to defeat the fear these bikers instilled in the community. It would take a father's actions and the unwavering love he had for his daughter to stand against the dark forces threatening to destroy what they had built. The calm before the storm. Maddie stood firm in the face of the bikers' harassment, but as the motorcycles roared closer, a sense of unease filled the air. Fear was palpable in every step they took, every sneer they made. Yet Maddie did not waver. She remembered her father's lessons, her mother's enduring courage, and she reminded herself why she was doing this. This stand wasn't just about selling lemonade, it was about proving that kindness is stronger than fear, that standing firm in the face of cruelty is the only way to defeat it. The tension continued to rise as the Dark Phantoms circled her stand. They were waiting, taunting her, trying to break her down. But Maddie, with her unshakable courage, refused to show any sign of weakness. She had a mission, a promise to keep, and nothing would break her resolve. But would this be enough to hold back the tide of intimidation? Or would this moment spark something much larger? Something that could change the course of Silver Oak Springs history? As Maddie poured lemonade for the next customer, an older woman named Ruth Whitaker, the rumble of more motorcycles reached her ears. They weren't just passing through. The Dark Phantoms were circling again. This time, they were preparing for something far worse. In the face of this mounting threat, Maddie didn't back down. She couldn't. Her father had always told her that real strength wasn't about fighting violence with violence, it was about doing what's right, even when it's the hardest thing to do. The showdown approaches. The showdown between Maddie Brighton and the Dark Phantoms was inevitable. As the bikers, led by Hawkthorne, closed in on her, Maddie could feel the weight of the situation pressing on her chest. But she didn't flinch. Her stand, the symbol of her courage and her love for her family, would not fall. The bikers' threats were only the beginning of a larger battle, one that would bring the town together, one that would test the limits of courage and community. And this was where the story would truly begin. As Maddie stood at her lemonade stand, surrounded by the rumble of motorcycles and the threat of the Dark Phantoms, a wave of tension surged through Silver Oak Springs. It wasn't just a small lemonade stand anymore, it was a battleground. The quiet town, known for its peaceful rhythm, was on the verge of seeing how far one person's courage could push back against a force built on fear and intimidation. Maddie had already proven her bravery by standing firm against the bikers. But as the conflict grew, it became clear that this wasn't just a stand for charity anymore, it was a stand for what was right, for community, and for the values that Silver Oak Springs once cherished. The Dark Phantoms, known for their ruthless reputation, weren't used to being challenged. They were a group that thrived on intimidation, using their motorcycles as symbols of dominance and their attitudes as weapons of fear. They had bullied their way through communities before, extorting money and terrorizing residents. But Maddie was not a typical target. She wasn't some random person on the street. She wasn't even just a little girl trying to sell lemonade. Maddie was something far stronger, a young girl who embodied the very spirit of resilience that the gang had long sought to crush. As the two bikers, led by the imposing Hawkthorne, rolled up to her stand, their presence alone was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. Hawk had that unmistakable air of authority, a kind of forceful confidence that came with years of running things his way. He was accustomed to people backing down in fear, to people complying, giving in, and letting his gang rule. But Maddie, with her unwavering determination, wasn't playing by the same rules. This wasn't a fight for power or control, it was a battle for the soul of the community. As the bikers sneered at her, Maddie, though trembling inside, remained calm. Her voice didn't quiver as she explained what her stand was for. "It's for sick kids," she said, her hands shaking slightly as she poured lemonade, trying not to show the nerves that were bubbling up inside her. Yet, despite the tension mounting, Maddie kept her composure. She wasn't afraid of them. Not now. Not when so much was at stake. Spike, the shorter of the two bikers, leaned in close and delivered his taunting remarks. "Ain't that sweet?" he mocked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Too bad politeness won't stop your stand from falling apart." The cruel words stung, but Maddie didn't allow them to break her focus. This wasn't about her stand, it was about proving that goodness and kindness were not easily destroyed by cruelty. In that moment, she was more than a young girl selling lemonade. She was a symbol of the fight against fear, against intimidation, against the dark forces that threatened to take over her town. Her heart pounded as the bikers walked away, but Maddie's resolve was only hardened. She understood that the gang wasn't simply trying to intimidate her. They were testing her. They were waiting for her to back down, for her to retreat into fear, to give up on what she had set out to do. But Maddie wasn't going to back down. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about doing what's right, even when fear was present. And Maddie was going to do what was right, not for herself, but for the children at St. Mary's Hospital, for the memory of her mother, for her father, who had taught her what true strength was. The town reacts, seeds of resistance. It wasn't long before the news of the Dark Phantom's intimidation spread across the town. People who had long felt oppressed by the gang's control started to feel the weight of Maddie's courage. Ruth Whitaker, a longtime resident, came by the stand to make a donation. Ruth had always been kind to Maddie, and as she handed over a $20 bill, she added, "Keep the change, dear. Don't stay out too late today. There's talk about the Dark Phantoms." Ruth's concern wasn't misplaced. Word had already gotten around about the gang's visit. But Maddie, despite the unease in her chest, refused to let it show. She kept her stand open. Her father's words rang in her ears. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right, even when you're scared. And that's exactly what Maddie was doing. Fighting not just for a cause, but for the right to stand firm in the face of adversity. But it wasn't just her own strength she was tapping into. Something was happening in Silver Oak Springs. The seeds of resistance were beginning to sprout. As Maddie's stand continued, something in the town started to change. People were watching her. They were seeing the way she faced the bikers, the way she held her ground, despite her fear. It was more than just a stand against the dark phantoms. It was becoming a stand against fear itself. The town that had once been silenced by intimidation was beginning to find its voice, slowly but surely. Maddie's bravery was sparking something in others. She wasn't alone anymore. As more people came by to support her, Maddie began to see the town through a different lens. This wasn't just a small fight between a girl and a gang. It was a battle for the heart of Silver Oak Springs. Would the fear that the dark phantoms had instilled in the town continue to control them? Or would they stand united, no longer intimidated by the gang's reign? The community, though hesitant at first, began to rally behind Maddie's courage. They began to realize that this wasn't just her fight. It was theirs. And while Maddie was out there, standing for something far greater than herself, her father, Commander Sire Brighton, was getting closer to home. The promise he had made to Maddie, to return and protect his family and his town, was soon to be fulfilled. Hawk's arrival, a final test of Maddie's courage. The day had started like any other, with the sun shining and the hum of normalcy surrounding Maddie's lemonade stand. But then came the unmistakable sound of more motorcycles. A sound that turned the town's air cold with fear. Hawk Thorne, the leader of the Dark Phantoms, arrived in full force. His appearance was nothing short of intimidating. His dark sunglasses hiding his intent. His grim demeanor sending chills down Maddie's spine. Hawk dismounted his motorcycle, his eyes scanning the scene with practiced precision. Maddie's stand, her mission, was about to face its greatest challenge yet. As Hawk approached her, his voice rough and commanding, he tried to impose his will on her, demanding that she give up her stand, claiming that nothing goes on without us taking our share. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. And Maddie wasn't about to let him take control of her mission. The air was thick with tension as Hawk demanded, "You want to keep this stand open? You'll pay the price." But Maddie stood tall. She wasn't afraid of him. Instead of crumbling under his threat, Maddie stood her ground, staring Hawk down as she calmly explained what her stand was all about. "It's for the kids at St. Mary's Hospital," she said, each word steady, even as her heart raced. Hawk, his smile twisted in mockery, was about to escalate things further when the unexpected happened. The sound of sirens in the distance. Officer Cross, a local cop who had long respected Maddie's family, arrived just in time to break the tension. The tension in Silver Oak Springs had reached its breaking point. What started as a small confrontation over a lemonade stand had turned into a full-scale battle between fear and courage, between the oppressive power of the Dark Phantoms and the unwavering spirit of a small community determined to stand up for what was right. Maddie's courage had inspired a transformation, not only in herself but in the town. People were no longer hiding in the shadows. They were rallying behind her. And though the Dark Phantoms had tried to break her, they hadn't counted on the strength of the people who cared about her, and they hadn't counted on the return of her father, Commander Sire Brighton. Maddie's last stand, the biker's ultimate test. The situation had grown more intense as Hawk Thorne, the leader of the Dark Phantoms, stood menacingly over Maddie's lemonade stand. His intimidating presence was enough to strike fear into anyone, but Maddie refused to let him see her fear. Her father had taught her that true strength was not about overpowering others. It was about standing firm, protecting what's right, and having the courage to face the hardest challenges head-on. As Hawk's gang gathered, taunting her and demanding she shut down the stand, Maddie's resolve solidified. She was more than just a girl selling lemonade. She was now the symbol of the town's defiance, standing in the face of tyranny, and her lemonade stand had become the front line of this battle. It wasn't just about the money raised for charity. It was about something bigger. The triumph of kindness over cruelty, community over fear, and strength over intimidation. Hawk sneered as he looked down at Maddie, his words cold and dismissive. "You want to keep this stand open? You'll pay the price." He was used to people backing down when faced with his demands, but Maddie wasn't one to be intimidated. Her voice didn't waver as she told him, "It's for sick kids. My mom promised we'd help families." She didn't even flinch. In the face of this monstrous force, Maddie found the strength her father had always spoken about, the strength to protect what mattered most. She stood firm, never breaking her gaze from Hawk's cold eyes. As the confrontation reached its boiling point, the situation seemed to hang in the balance. Hawk was ready to escalate things further. But then, the unexpected happened. The arrival of a hero, Commander Sire Brighton, returns. Just as Hawk's menacing words were about to shatter Maddie's composure, the sound of another motorcycle roared in the distance. This wasn't the heavy, foreboding rumble of the Dark Phantom's bikes. It was the unmistakable sound of Commander Sire Brighton's motorcycle. The crowd in Silver Oak Springs, who had been watching in silence from a distance, suddenly grew restless, whispering among themselves. Something was about to change. Hawk, sensing the shift, turned to see who was approaching, his eyes narrowing as the new figure came into view. The crowd parted to reveal Commander Sire Brighton, returning from his deployment. His face was stern, his military training evident in his posture, and the presence of authority he carried with him was undeniable. He wasn't just any man. He was Maddie's father, and his very presence was a declaration that the fear the Dark Phantoms had instilled in the town was about to end. Hawk, always ready to assert his dominance, tried to keep his cool. But there was something different in the air. The Dark Phantoms weren't the only ones who knew how to intimidate. Commander Brighton wasn't there to start a fight. He was there to end one. The two men stood, sizing each other up. Hawk, the biker who had terrorized the town for years, and Commander Brighton, the Navy SEAL who had spent his life protecting others. It was a showdown of two different kinds of strength. The strength to destroy and the strength to protect. The shift in the town's energy united against fear. As Commander Brighton dismounted his motorcycle and walked toward the group, the weight of the moment was felt by everyone in Silver Oak Springs. The Dark Phantoms, known for their ruthless grip on the town, suddenly found themselves outmatched. The community, which had been too scared to act, now felt the shift in the air. Maddie's courage had sparked something in her father and in the hearts of everyone around her. It wasn't just one man who stood against the Dark Phantoms now, it was a united community. The town, once cowering under the gang's control, had found its voice. And it wasn't just about Maddie anymore, it was about the community rallying together to protect what they loved. The citizens of Silver Oak Springs began to show their strength. They stood up not with violence, but with resolve, determined to reclaim their town from the clutches of fear. Hawk, noticing the change in the atmosphere, attempted to maintain his intimidating stance. But it was clear the tide was shifting. The fear he once commanded was now being replaced with something far more powerful: courage. Commander Brighton, standing tall next to his daughter, had come to defend not only Maddie but everything she represented: strength, unity, and the courage to face evil head-on. A moment of redemption, the final blow. The standoff couldn't have lasted much longer. Hawk's bravado began to waver as the realization set in. He wasn't the only one with power anymore. As the crowd's collective strength grew, Hawk and his gang began to see their hold over Silver Oak Springs slipping away. But it wasn't just the bikers who had lost their grip, it was the whole dynamic of fear that had been instilled over the years. The town wasn't afraid anymore. With one final look at Maddie, her father, and the gathered crowd, Hawk knew he had lost. It wasn't a physical fight that determined the outcome, it was a fight of ideals. Hawk's strength, built on fear, could not stand against the strength of a community united by love and courage. With his pride bruised, Hawk turned, signaling for his gang to retreat. The Dark Phantoms were beaten not by force, but by the unyielding power of community and compassion. The bikers' reign of terror was over. Maddie's lemonade stand remained open, and Silver Oak Springs had learned a lesson that would resonate for generations to come. True strength is not found in fear, but in the courage to stand up for what's right. The transformation of Silver Oak Springs. In the aftermath, the town of Silver Oak Springs wasn't the same. The change had been subtle at first, but now it was undeniable. The community, once ruled by fear, had learned the most valuable lesson of all: the power of standing up for what's right. Maddie Brighton, once just a young girl with a lemonade stand, had become a hero in her own right, leading the charge to reclaim their town from the hands of bullies and tyrants. When Commander Brighton returned, it wasn't just about his role as a father or a protector, it was about his acknowledgement of the transformation his daughter had sparked in the town. Maddie's courage, her refusal to back down, had shown everyone that there was more strength in kindness than in intimidation. The town, having witnessed the shift from fear to hope, was now united by a bond stronger than any motorcycle gang. Silver Oak Springs was never the same after that day, and it was all thanks to a young girl's courage and a father's return. The darkness that had threatened to swallow the town was replaced with the light of hope, kindness, and the unwavering belief that no one, no matter how powerful, can take away the community's spirit. If the story of courage, resilience, and community touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more incredible stories of strength and transformation. Together, we can spread messages of hope and inspire others to stand up for what's right, no matter how big or small the battle may seem. Thank you for watching, and remember, real strength is found in courage, kindness, and standing together. Stay tuned for more stories like this and be the change you want to see.